It is time for
Original Tales of Horror.
terrifying true stories of the paranormal,
Urban legends
and folklore.
Join us as we explore the dark, the terrifying, and the unknown.
Welcome to the podcast where no matter what time it is always
horror time.
Oh, hello. Welcome to Horror Time. I'm Timekeeper Matt, and this is our Halloween special. I'm just starting up this fire here because we're going to be telling you 2 terrifying creepypastas that we found on the internet. For those of you that do not know what creepypastas are, they are tales that are born from the internet. And we are going to narrate them for you. Myself, Timekeeper Matt, and Timekeeper Pat, we have found 2 terrifying tales that we're going to share with you around the fire. So join us now for this special Halloween episode of Horror Time.
The 11-mile road. No large vehicles. There are tight turns. You wouldn't want to get stuck. Don't use any expensive car or your prized car. You wouldn't want that to get scratched up. Never exceed 30 miles an hour. If you're going too fast, again, you hit those tight turns. When the road shows itself to you, you can either feel it or you'll see it. For example, if you were looking for wealth in your desire, it's said to say there's shimmering in the tree branches. Whatever you do, do not open the windows, even if it gets hot. And then once you've entered the 11-mile road stretch, time is at a standstill. So you don't have to worry about the nighttime draining away. Never take your eyes off the road. If you take it off even for a second, you will end up in that zone forever. Don't listen to any of the voices or sounds you hear or draw attention to them. Keep your focus on the road and the drive. And the most important, this has to be done at nighttime on back roads or old country roads. On the first mile, you might want to turn on the heater as it is going to start to get noticeably colder. And as I said before, we want to keep our focus on the road as much as possible, not even a slight distraction. Second mile, and if you haven't turned the heater on by now, probably going to want to do that because it's going to get even colder. Now, moving on to the third mile, you may see or think you've seen shadows moving or things moving out of the corner of your eyes, but as I said, keep your focus ahead. Do not get distracted. You don't want to end up in a ditch. At the 4th mile, this is where the voices begin. No matter how close or how familiar they sound, do not react to them by any means. Now, moving to the 5th mile, it would seem that the trees have just vanished, and now in your peripheral you might be able to see the appearance of a lake and maybe a moon shining above. However, this is another distraction. Do not, I repeat, do not lose focus. Now we are on the 6th mile. Here, the stars and the moon disappear, and it becomes completely dark. The only light you can see is from your headlights on your car, and they even blink here and there. At this point on the 6th mile, the radio will automatically kick on, and a voice will start speaking your greatest fears. Whatever you do not visualize, because that will drive you insane and veer you off the path. You need to focus on the road and clear your mind. Now, if you've made it to the 7th mile, the voices will return. And again, you have to ignore them and not react. Keep your focus on the road. It might even feel like it's coming from right next to you. The breath on your neck. Do not acknowledge it. Here on the 8th mile, you may still hear voices, but you have to ignore them again and just keep going. There might be mechanical issues with your vehicle. Do not pull over and stop to fix them. You need to push forward. The 9th mile really tests the trust you have in yourself. Here, your car will appear to be breaking down. However, you have to shut your eyes, do not open them for anything, and try to start your car as fast as possible. Once this has been completed, then you will drive as fast as you can to the next mile without opening your eyes. Once you reach that mile marker, you will know, you will feel, and you can open your eyes at that point. 10th mile, here's where you get some relief. The voices finally stop. And it's said if you do look in your rearview mirror, which I don't recommend, all of the voices or beings stop, and they admire how far you have come. Here we are, the 11th mile, the last one. At this point, the vehicle will lose power, but it will continue to move. If you start to see a red light in the distance, immediately close your eyes. Hold them tight. Do not look. You will hear unearthly, disturbing voices and noises around you. something out of a nightmare. The temperature will run from cold to hot. So hot, and things feel like they're touching you, but do not look. And then the flesh will feel like it's burning off of your skin. So unbearable. Do not look. Once the power returns to your vehicle, it's okay to open your eyes. Drive until you hit a dead end, and then stop. At this point, you've made it. Nothing's going to get you at this point. And then you'll notice that you are back where you started. And guess what? We did it. Now, all we have to do is close our eyes, imagine what our desire is, and it should appear before us. So, you want to go for another ride?
The Bargain of the Trees.
It's almost 7. Zoya leans back in her chair, stretching her arms with heavy sighs, after writing a 15-page essay. It's due tomorrow, so there's still time for edits, but she's been staring at her screen for much too long. She peeks out her bedroom window to the right. The last creeping bands of pink and orange sun grow dim across the barren treetops of the forest nearby, bleeding into the horizon beyond her corner of the suburb. The autumn air is cool and fresh. The wind is tame, and her work is done for the day. She's looking forward to her daily run, kicking off the chair, putting her PC to sleep, and slipping into freshly laundered workout clothes and a thin jacket. Zoya gets a few more stretches in, creaking her 3-hour homework stress out of her bones. When she makes her way downstairs, her father's watching The Devil Wears Prada in the living room. He peeks over his shoulder to see her pass. "Zoya, why are you running?" "Forget today, it's cold." Zoya is already near the door at this point, putting her headphones in. "I have a jacket." "Get a bigger one, it's too small." He gestures with disdain at her entire garb. "You will freeze. Listen to me. Listen to your father. I never disobeyed my father when I was your age." "I'm not gonna freeze. Relax." Zoya glances at the coffee table and sees a bowl of potato chips. "And aren't you supposed to be watching your cholesterol?" Her father smirks. "You don't listen to me. I don't listen to you. See how that feels?" She sighs. "That's your last bowl. I'm throwing all the chips out when I get back." "I'll buy more," he snaps with his mouth full. "Bye." She waves at him as she steps through the door, music kicking in and shutting out his final protests. And from the second her feet touch the sidewalk next to their driveway, she breaks into a brisk jog, matching her steps with the beat of the music blaring from her AirPods. The neighborhood is still awake, readying for Halloween as the end of October creeps closer. Zoya nods at a few of the neighbors who smile back, regular interactions on her runs to the nearby forest trail. The sun has set, but the sky's ethereal blue glow still sets the evening light. The final curtain call before the impending pitch black of a cloudy night. Streetlights start to come to life as she runs. Orange lamps blink, awake and washing the streets in their signature dreary warm glow. The wind is chilly, but she doesn't mind. The running keeps her warm. She passes the last house on her street and takes a right, approaching the entrance to the trail. And in a few seconds, like every evening before that, she steps off the curb and onto a winding dirt path flanked by grass and dark, naked trees on both sides. Through music that blares through her ears, the woods around her are quieter than they should be. She'd know this if she would simply take off her earbuds. She would notice the birds, or lack thereof. Their chirping cacophony is replaced with a still silence. No squirrels skirting across the path like she often sees. She'd notice the strange feel of the air, dense and humid among the trees despite the time of the year, if she wasn't already sweating from her quickening pace. Her breath sharp and hot in her lungs. Maybe it's the overwhelming denseness of the air or the compounding oddness of the forest tonight, but Zoya, through the beats of her playlist and the pounding rush of blood, still catches on a prevailing sense of unease. She slows her run to a brisk walk, panting, coughing a bit, not something she's used to at all. Given how often she runs, she usually doesn't start slowing down until the end of the forest trail, which is at least 15 minutes away. After a few calming breaths, Zoya takes her headphones out. Her ears feel stuffy, the music obtrusive and loud, and not sensations she's used to at all. But maybe the most unnerving thing about tonight is something Zoya hasn't seen yet or noticed. Although, as she slows down, it dawns on her, the more she thinks back, not a single soul has been on the trail. This is a popular time to run in the neighborhood. There's almost always 2 or 3 others at least. Not really. It can't be that cold. Maybe it's just a freak coincidence that everyone else decided to go easy on the cardio today. The thought of her being all alone in the forest makes her a bit nervous, but she pushes back on her fear almost immediately, like a reflex. It may look like a dense, remote woods, but the neighborhood, houses, cars, lights, and people are much closer than it seems. Moreover, she's been running here every day for almost nearly 2 months. It's been one of her freshman year resolutions for self-improvement. And if all else fails, she knows she has her phone with her, and she knows there's reception here. Everything's good. Enough lazing around, Zoya thinks to herself, and starts running again, but keeps her earbuds out. Just the sound of her feet, crunching falling leaves, her breath, and a distant, faint wailing of a fire truck. Civilization is closer than it seems. She's safe, she thinks. Zoya comes to a dead halt, letting out a sharp gasp. Panting, sweating, both hands over her mouth, she's staring at something just off the trail. Pale, wrinkled, ghastly, and matted with filth. A hunched over and drooping figure of what looks like an old woman. Tiny tufts of spindly white hair sticking out of a barren scalp, saggy skin dangling off her bones with barely any signs of flesh, starved, malnourished, almost near death it looked. Not a shred of clothing on her either. The woman is on her knees and elbows, head hanging low and tucked between her arms, facing away from Zoya and the trail, her arched back stretching over the bones of her spine, a grotesque and miserable display. Tiny, shriveled, and completely unfathomable. Zoya's first thought is she's dead. But no, she's clearly kneeling in a deliberate pose. She can see the woman's back rising and falling. She's definitely breathing. Are you okay? Zoya steps forward, her shock falling away to concern now. Hello, ma'am? The woman seems to make a sound, some kind of rattled whisper. But her face is still tucked to the ground between her arms, and Zoya can't make anything out. She moves closer still. Are you hurt? She bends down a bit to try and see the woman's face. Can you hear me? Slowly, the woman's head moves. Zoya flinches back, but not too far. She raises her face out of the shadow, a skeletal, sunken face, skin drooping and curved flaps off her neck and cheeks, and incomprehensibly sad, bloodshot eyes. Even in the near darkness of the evening, Zoya can make out the misery behind those steel gray eyes, yellowing, watery, covered in cataracts. She may as well have been blind. Oh my God, ma'am, can you hear me? How'd you get here? What happened? The woman unhinges her decrepit jaw, a toothless black hole puncturing the striking paleness of her face as she opens her mouth to speak. Looking up at Zoya, she mumbles, barely audible, struggling to get words out. Zoya realizes she's not speaking English. She looks around her, up and down both ends of the path, still not a soul, and the sky is getting darker every minute. As she stands, her breath mists up in front of her face. It's really getting cold. Zoya looks back at the naked woman who's still staring up at her and mumbling, "Fuck, you must be freezing." She takes off her jacket and slowly approaches the woman, bending down. The autumn air hits her bare arms and sends goosebumps up her neck. Here, ma'am. Do you want me to put this on? I'm gonna call for help, okay? Just put this on. Zoya places the folded jacket in front of the woman, gesturing with her hands to wrap it around her in case she didn't understand English at all. Finally, breaking eye contact, the old woman moves, looking down at the jacket and reaching for it with spindly, bony hands. Zoya pulls out her phone and dials 911.
911, do you need police, fire, or ambulance?
Ambulance, I think. Zoya's keeping a concerned eye on the woman, who seems to be feeling the jacket with both hands now, still hunched over and kneeling.
And what's the emergency?
Yeah, I'm on a walking trail, Spring Valley Trail, just off Carlton and Millmore. And I was out for a run, and there was this, I saw this old woman laying on the ground. She's naked. She looks really sick, like she's been abused or something.
She's still there?
Yeah.
When did you see her last?
I'm looking at her right now. I don't want to leave, and there's nobody else around.
You said she's naked?
Yeah, I gave her my jacket.
Does she have any injuries? Can you communicate with her?
No, I didn't see injuries, just she's really like dirty, and I don't think she can speak English.
Okay, now can you tell me where on the trail are you both right now?
I ran for about 5 minutes since I entered from Millmore, so yeah, I'd say about that far in, I'd say. But I ran kind of fast, so it might be, more than 5 minutes if you're walking.
All right, responders are on the way. I'm going to ask you to stay with her until they get there. Is that okay? What's your name?
I'm Zoya. Zoya Rashid.
All right, Zoya. If you feel safe, I'd like you to stay with her, but it's completely up to you. Responders should be there in about 10 to 15 minutes. You can leave if you want.
Okay, I'll stay. It's fine.
All right, I'm going to call you back to check on you in a few minutes. Is that all right?
Yep, it's all good. I'll be here.
Great. Thanks for letting us know. They'll be there soon. We'll chat in a bit. Take care, Zoya.
Yeah, bye. Silence again. Zoya peels the sweat-covered phone off of her face. That's a lot of sweat for such a cold night, even if she's been running. And her panting hasn't slowed down either. She wipes the phone on her pants and puts it into her pocket, fighting a small urge to pull it back out and start recording. The woman, who was fondling her jacket with both hands, has now taken to sniffing it, crunching it up, and drawing deep, rattled breaths, stuffing her nose in the jacket. Zoya's transfixed. She concludes that the woman must be senile or something, or on drugs. Must have fled from some kind of treatment facility or something, or maybe far worse, given the state of her. The woman then rolls out a gray, slimy tongue, licking the jacket's inner lining. Zoya recoils instinctively. Oh, Jesus. She keeps checking both ends of the trail, hoping someone else would come along, but still no one in sight. She looks back down, and the woman seems to be wholly engrossed in the jacket, sniffing it, tasting it, feeling it. Zoya checks her phone. Still a long way to go. She's reconsidering her decision to wait here. It really is getting dark, and she really does feel unsafe. She lifts her eyes off of the glow of her phone screen to meet a sight that makes her heart stop. Oh, shit! The old woman, seemingly still in her hunched posture, has crawled over to Zoya onto the trail. Trembling, she managed to get up on one knee, holding the jacket with both hands and trying to move closer to Zoya. Those eyes, unblinking, locked again on her face. I called an ambulance for you. Zoya tries some last-ditch attempts at communicating, pushing past her shock, her heart still pounding. She has a headache. She wants to go home, and she's finally feeling how cold it really is. The woman drags her body ahead with one foot on the ground, her other knee digging into the dirt. What the fuck? Giving up trying to talk to her, Zoya steps back. It's too unnerving. The movement, the eyes, the impossibly malnourished body of someone that shouldn't be alive against her better self, she gives into fear, hating herself for it. Okay, please stay away. Stay away. Stay here, ma'am. I called the ambulance for you. They're on their way, okay? Zoya says this as she keeps stepping away, back in the direction of the trail's entrance from where she came. I have to go. I gotta go. I'm sorry. I gotta go, okay? And without a second glance, she turns away and breaks into a light jog. She doesn't feel like running faster. She's tired and severely disappointed in herself. How could she leave that poor woman alone? What if someone else finds her? And what if they harm her? So what if she's creepy and weird? She needed help. The night is upon the woods now, only a glimmer of blue light breaking through to illuminate the path ahead of her. She turns a sharp corner on the path and keeps jogging, fighting the urge to stop, to go back. It really is getting very dark, and the voice on the line did say, only if you feel safe. Only stay if you want to. No obligation, right? Exasperated, Zoya slows down and stops panting and huffing. God damn it. She looks back up to the curve of the path and seriously considers it. Why would this feeble, weak, sick old lady make her feel unsafe? How self-centered does one have to be to abandon someone like that in a moment of need? What kind of person does that? Zoya feels a corrosive sickness bubbling up, a seething upheaval of disappointment and anger. This was wrong. It was all wrong, and she'd never forgive herself, she thought to herself. All she had to do was wait 5-10 minutes. How hard was that? Zoya looks away from the path and down at her phone to see if the operator had called her back yet. It had been more than a few minutes. Maybe there are too many calls. She should just dial 911 again, right? She thinks to herself. What if someone else picks up? Phone in hand, Zoya sways around, stuck and unsure, and turns around and goes back, and she freezes. There, at the end of the path, right on the sharp curve, she sees it. Jacket in one hand, fully upright, the old woman is moving down the path a mere 10 feet away from Zoya, running at her. Skeletal arms and legs flailing, staggered gait, but her gaunt eyes, now black shadows on her face, fixed directly ahead on Zoya. She screams, spins on her heels, and trips, falling face first, smashing her chin on the ground. She springs back up, feeling none of it, and breaks into the fastest sprint she could possibly push herself to do. Faster and faster, still no looking back, her feet flying over dry leaves and cold earth, hair blowing back, and the icy wind numbing her face. Not fast enough, not at all fast enough. She grunts and screams, pushing her legs beyond their limits, begging to see the end of the path. And she trips again, this time flying a good distance before crashing and rolling onto the ground, blood spurting from her mouth. No time, she thinks. She jumps back up yet again, back to her sprint. Feeling none of it, blood pounding, legs and lungs searing with pain. Can't stop, need to leave the forest, need to go home, she just keeps thinking to herself and repeating to herself. Was the path really this long? She can't remember. Did she take a wrong turn? Was she even deeper in the forest? She can't run anymore. She's pushed herself enough. Wheezing, she stumbles to a halt and falls again, covered in dirt, blood dripping down her face. Blood spurting out with each heaving cough. This isn't just from a cut in her mouth. She's coughing it up. Her head is spinning. It's just exhaustion. The air is sickening, stuffy, dense, heavy, pushing her down. She's too weak to get back up. Too sick. Panic sets in. The sky is getting dark, and she can no longer see the entirety of the path. Zoya scrambles for her phone. She needs to call for help, but for herself now. She pats her left pocket where it always is and feels nothing. She tries her other pocket. Nothing. They're both empty. Overwhelming dread, the truest, purest dread she's ever faced as she stares into the increasing blackness of the forest, engulfing her now. Did she drop it? When? She fell a few times while running. Did she drop it then? How far back down the path was it? It's getting too dark to see. Her head is spinning faster. She feels a stinging liquid shoot up her throat, into her mouth, out her nose. Choking and coughing, she doubles over, vomiting into the dirt. This isn't just exhaustion from running. There's something in the air as she stares down at her own blood and vomit swirling in a puddle. She hears it, a rustling. A steady patter of feet. In the deepening darkness, through pounding pain and blurring sight, Zoya turns her head to see it. The old woman is peering at her from behind a tree, head cocked sideways. She cracks a wide, toothless grin, stretching and contorting her skin further still, and she raises one long, skeletal arm, fingers clutching a glowing, vibrating object. Her phone. Zoya's phone. It's ringing too. And the woman shows it to Zoya. A gleeful grin pulled across her face, staring down at her. And as the phone rings, the woman steps around the trees, shambles over to Zoya, who begins to crawl away. Impossible though it may feel to move at all. No, please. She sputters through bloody teeth, crawling backwards away from the beast until her back hits the firm, indifferent bark of another tree. And she begins to scream, "No! Stay away! Fucking leave! Leave me alone!" The woman ignores her, taking a few shambles, steps closer, and stopping to stare and grin at Zoya every few seconds. Wobbling side to side, her shallow breath grows louder, heavier, eyes wider, like she's excited. Zoya kicks her legs to her back, but strength drains from her body with every passing second. She can't kick anymore, and she can't scream. Her voice cracks. She fumbles around with one hand and wrenches out some grass, throwing it at the hag, who now stands over her, grinning down, the strobing light of her ringing phone periodically lighting up a horrific, twisted, evil, smiling face against the pitch-black darkness of light. And with every flashing glare of the screen, Zoya sees the monstrous face getting closer to hers. The woman is bending down, getting on all fours, crawling up to Zoya on the ground. She's hyperventilating, breathing uncontrollably, shaking her head in defiance, too terrified to make a sound. As Zoya faces down the creature, blood, tears soaking her face, the woman's smiling mouth opens wide. A putrid smell of rotting and vile penetrates the air. Zoya has no time to turn away. Every ounce of strength is gone, and she's paralyzed, seemingly by the air itself, unable to move, as though the forest and its roots have been held here in place, as though the trees themselves gaze down upon her with malicious intent. The thing places her hand on the back of Zoya's head and presses their mouths together. With phone still in hand, Zoya can see the caller ID. Dad. The creature's grip on the back of her head grows stronger, and Zoya sees her own sight dwindle to utter blindness. She feels something immense drain from her and feels her body shrivel and shrink, and the hand on her head grows heavier, thicker, softer, and warmer. The creature transforms, skin darkening, arms and legs filling out, growing in height, and thick black hair breaking through its scalp, flowing down to the ground. Body warping from a mangled heap of skin and bone to a whole, healthy, and strong form. When it finally wrenches its mouth off Zoya's, she's shrunk to a third of her size, eyes dull and gray, her bones brittle, a husk of what she once was mere minutes ago. The creature stands upright, looking down at her. It has Zoya's face, her body, her voice, and her eyes. But behind the veil, the shadow of its evil, gleeful grin remains, etched on its new face. It explores its new body, feeling its arms, running fingers through its waist-length hair, feeling its new face, and smiling its new smile. It looks at Zoya's phone, still clasped in its hands. Several missed calls, some from Dad and some from others. She decides to call Dad back, and she walks around Zoya's body, squatting down next to her. Zoya can hear her. Zoya's still alive, blind, paralyzed, but breathing, conscious, sentient, screaming inside. And next to her, she hears yet another impossibility. Her own voice. Hi, Dad. Sorry, had it on vibrate. Yeah, I'm fine. Relax. Jesus, I'm literally headed back right now, okay? See you soon. Love you. Through sheer, immovable misery, Zoya cries quiet tears as the creature giggles next to her ear. She feels it pull her clothes off her body, hears it talk to itself. Let me just get these on. And then hears its voice, her own voice, last time very close to her ear. Thanks for the jacket, sweetie. Smells good, like you. The creature stands upright and stretches, turns and prances away with bouncing joy, humming to itself. Its voice and footsteps dwindle to silence. Zoya tries to scream, to make any sound at all. The immense effort it takes to move just a finger or open her mouth is beyond anything she's ever felt. And she lets out the loudest scream she can, a low, raspy, rattling whisper, barely louder than the autumn leaves rustling in the gentle wind. She screams and screams, quieter and quieter, until her last breath is spent, and she feels sanity slipping away. And the agony of losing her father, her friends, and everyone she's ever loved to this unholy abomination sits still and silent in prison, incapable of release. Zoya feels something move. Under her broken, mangled arms and legs, what feels like long, coiling snakes, but too hard to be snakes, moving and slithering, wrapping around her, tightening, dragging her into the very soil. When they move across her face, she realizes what they are: roots. The tree's roots consume her, covering her and twisting themselves around her until they are one and the same. And as she's dragged beneath the earth, soul still yearning, the forest lightens, depressing darkness dissipates. The night sky opens up to stars. Street lights shine through the trees. The sound of passing cars rumble in the distance. The ground where Zoya was consumed, now covered in roots once more, looking immovable, centuries old. The forest sets itself free, the dense air dispelling, and it will remain free until the next exchange must be made. Deep beneath the earth, Zoya's flesh and bones contort and shatter and shred and bleed through the soil, rock, and rubble to meet the remnants of all those before her, joining them in a millennial-old, ghastly amalgamation of what was once human beings, spanning the entirety of the forest and beyond, now destined to yearn in silence to see the stars forevermore.
Happy Halloween!